be on the recording, we ask that you kindly drop here now. So this recording will be available on our webpage to share with your colleagues later, and it'll be up in about 24 hours. We'd just like to acknowledge and thank as well our partners in the series. We've got Royal Life Saving Society Australia, Commercial Aquatics Australia, OTM Sport and Planning Group, Sport and services. Today's session is supporting mental health and well-being. We've got Fiona Kriaris back with us from the Y. Fiona probably needs no introduction from many of you, but Fiona's been a presenter at our conference last year, the Pool Safety Summit, as well as the ARB conference. She presented at PHYLAX about 3 weeks ago as well, and is very well known through the industry as being an expert in mindfulness and well-being. We're very pleased to have you back, Fiona, so I might hand over to you. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much. How's this for sound?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yep, loud and clear.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to presenting to you all today. Feel free to put any questions in the chat. Otherwise, we can address them at the end. So we do have 45 minutes together. Let's see how we go with time. We may have an opportunity to do a meditation. We may not. It will just really depend on the flow today. Today is about supporting mental health and well-being. And we know how important it is. And life being so busy and chaotic, I think we do have to take this time out for ourselves to be able to learn and to be present and to see what comes up. And so this session about mental well-being isn't just about your staff or customers, but this is also about yourself. And really, whatever you take away from this is really going to be specific for you. And so we are just planting seeds, and you do need to nurture these seeds for this to flourish. We've heard this word a lot, unprecedented, and our world is changing at a rapid pace. And these changes are due to technological, cultural, demographic, and now even COVID-19. But what's interesting is that our world was changing rapidly even before COVID-19, that now, well, it's a whole new level, isn't it? But what this is doing, it's forcing us to constantly redefine our place in the world in order to survive, thrive, and find meaning. And this is really what this presentation is about. How do we survive through COVID-19? But how do we thrive during time? And so when it comes to mental health, it isn't just one aspect. It's just so interrelated and intertwined and connected in so many ways that we need to understand it holistically. I have a definition I'd like to share with you. It's my favourite because it's very simple, and it's something that I sort of fudged together through my studies at UCLA at the Mindful Awareness Research Centre. To understand well-being, we want to be able to prevent disease. This is that survival. We want to be able to increase resilience. This is where we thrive. And we also want to enhance eudaimonia, and this is where we find meaning. I am going to spend a little bit of time on each of these. Prevent disease. So what we want to do, we want to increase the healthy lifespan of our life and decrease our disease span, or even prevent it altogether. So if we are going to get sick, let's not get sick now. Let's wait till we're 80 or 90, or let's just not get sick at all. And so a great term I like to use about preventing disease, or an example I should say, is the telomeres. And so this is quite recent research. The telomeres are protective caps at the end of your DNA chromosomes. They've been likened to the caps at the end of your shoelaces, if you can take a look on the PowerPoint there. So when we're born with 10,000 base pairs of telomeres, and they're really strong and long. Now, what happens is that we tend to lose about 100 or 150 per year. Aging called to get shortened and fray. So you can take a look at the shoelace on the very right. So that's why we become more susceptible to chronic disease and illnesses, because they are unable to protect us. What's interesting about this is that we used to think that the telomeres were just, this is the aging process and this is how it will be, and we can't do anything about it. However, Elizabeth Blackburn has won the Nobel Prize about really understanding the telomeres, and that we can actually prevent and we can actually repair any damage we've done. This obviously helps that inflammaging process and will allow us to have a more high quality of life. Now, this can be prevented, the telomeres strengthened and lengthened, by our lifestyle, which is really important. What I'd like to share with you is a mindfulness study. The mindfulness study took high stress participants. It actually took mothers that were caring for chronically ill children, very sad scenario. And they divided these mothers into two groups. The first group being a group that had intervention, which was meditation. The second group had no intervention, and they were just comparing what did meditation do to the telomeres in comparison to the group that had no intervention. They must less stress. Now, we're talking about chronic stress here that they're experiencing, not your daily stress, and yet they reported to be less stress than group 2 that didn't have any intervention. Group 1 also, with this intervention, their telomeres were stronger than group 2. On top of that, group 2 reported to have 10 years of cellular aging. So really, I actually call meditation the Botox of wellness, because not only is it about the physical, but at cellular level, what you can actually do to reduce aging. Quite profound. The second point of the definition, so prevent disease, the second part is to increase resilience. And we hear this word a lot. We often hear resilience as described as an elastic band. So when stretched, when we're challenged, we're stretched. But then it allows us to come back into our original state. It's also been described as a way that we can overcome adversity or bounce back. I think it's a very simplistic definition, and I think resilience is so much more than that. In fact, it's not just about coming back to your original state. There's also the potential to be resilient enough to have post-traumatic growth, to be in a better place than you were before. What's interesting about resilience is that we need to be challenged for us to practice being resilient. So we actually can't become more resilient unless we are faced with adversity. And us as humans, understandably, are wanting to shy away from challenges. It's in our nature to do so. And during COVID-19, I think that if we can shift our perspective to be able to see how we can cope during this time and not just bounce back, but how we have the capacity to be able to have post-traumatic growth and be in a better place into what we're calling this new norm than what we were before. So let me share with you my favorite definition. Resilience is our inherent capacity to see beauty, to find connection, to commune with something larger than ourselves, and to create, even in or after a horrendous experience. So how do you, in everyday life, see beauty? How do you find connection, and how are you communing with something larger than yourself, or even creating? And I say this in everyday life because to start to bring these type of practices in, or this type of awareness when we're challenged or when there's chaos or upheaval, is harder. So let's have these practices now so that when we are met with adversity, it's already a habitual response, or it's easier for us to have grasp to. And so in COVID-19, what we're all going through at the moment, are we able to start in our daily practice to even write down or to mention to someone else or to have that thought and awareness to say, what beauty did I see today? How was I able to connect? And what am I communing with larger than ourselves? And maybe you're creating, even if it's just baking. We know a lot of people are baking at the moment, they're at home. You're still creating, but acknowledging that. Can you see how it's so much more than just an elastic band? And then another part of wellbeing is to enhance eudaimonia. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this word before, but it's my favourite word. It's my favourite word because they're using it in science to describe wellbeing. So often we think that our purpose in life is to be happy, yet happiness is just an emotion. Happiness just comes and goes. What we want to do is have a deeper sense of happiness. So there's different types of happiness. There's hedonic happiness. It's that surface level happiness that comes with consumerism, that happiness that can even come with a sugar high, whatever it may be, but it's that quick little burst that isn't long lasting. And sometimes when we're relying on that happiness alone, the materialistic happiness, the superficial, we then are chasing for something else and we're never really feeling fulfilled. So when it comes to well-being, we don't want to be trying or striving for this destination happiness of hedonic. What is better or more beneficial for us as humans is this eudaimonic happiness. And what's interesting is that the research shows that people who are able to cultivate this eudaimonia rather than hedonic actually have less inflammation at a cellular level. So this is proof that by being able to enhance your eudaimonia, you're actually increasing your well-being. Let me give you a definition. It's a deep sense of well-being. It's equanimity. And equanimity means to have a balanced, even, and composed mind. But it means to have a balanced, even, and composed mind when we are challenged. So it's almost easier to have equanimity when things are great. But what about when they're not? It's being able to control the things that you can and to shift your perspective so you're not just thinking from an ego state, but from an eco-centric field, understanding that we are all connected and one. It's also happiness that comes from experiencing life as having meaning and connection to others and the world around you. Can you see how this is so much more than just happiness? Another term that's used for this in science is human flourishing. And so what we've just gone through is understanding well-being to be able to improve our mental health. The first one, prevent disease. The second one, increase resilience. And the third one, enhance eudaimonia. So let's take a look at this well-being method. I've now added in 5 elements to introduce as part of well-being. I quite like this as a framework. However, I understand, even though I have these in circles or in isolation, that these elements are so intertwined, having one will impact the other and so on. And this is why I like to include all elements when it comes to mental well-being, because you can't just focus on mental well-being, they're all interrelated. And so what we're going to go through today, we're going to touch on the physical, social, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And then towards the end, I'm going to give you 4 ingredients that can improve your well-being on a daily basis. So why do we need physical well-being? Well, 63% of Australians are obese or overweight. When it comes to social well-being, the number 1 future skill is going to be social intelligence. And the World Health Organization has labelled that mental health is the leading cause of disability globally. When it comes to emotional well-being, 70% of our behaviours are related to our emotions, yet we don't ever really speak about them or have education on it. And when it comes to spiritual well-being, I'm not talking about religion or New Age spirituality. I'm talking about what is your purpose in life, what is your purpose at work, and what are your values. So let's take a look at physical well-being. What I wanted to share with you is 3 surprising ways that exercise changes your brain. The first one is this exercise high that then encourages you to connect with other people. So you would have heard of this before. It's like the runner's high. By the way, I've just started running and I'm not experiencing that high. I'm finding it very challenging. But this high can also come from other types of exercise. And the neuroscientists are calling endocannabinoids, the brain chemical as the don't worry, be happy chemical. And so what this exercise high gives you is this chemical release. What's interesting about this, it's not just this feeling good, it then enhances your relationships with other people because it encourages or strengthens that feeling to connect with others. So now you're starting to see the physical well-being interrelating with your social well-being and also your mental health and even emotional health. It also makes your brain more sensitive to joy. You may have heard of dopamine. Now, our dopamine receptors and the release of dopamine tends to diminish as we get older, about 13% per decade. This means that we may experience less joy in life. But what we can do, we can combat this. And this is through regular exercise. So this is why we want to have regular exercise rather than just one-off exercise here and there, because we want to be able to increase the reward system, the big jolt into the brain, to have high levels of dopamine so that we can reduce the depressive symptoms and increase that joy. What else it does? It builds trust and belonging. Not sure if you've heard of collective effervescence. Basically, it means that people who move together feel together. So take a look at aqua exercise or perhaps even group fitness classes. What we're doing here is we're having this synchronized approach of moving. It could be a yoga practice. It could even be just the breath, breathing in and breathing out. Together, breathing in and breathing out. That synchrony together starts to build this trust and belonging, which is really interesting about the dynamics of group environment. And I know at the moment there's this physical distancing, but it doesn't mean that we can't still build this trust and belonging virtually. Even just having us all together at the moment is a start. Listening on your own may have a different impact than we are when we're in a group. Let's now transition to social well-being. Social connection is the feeling that you belong to a group and genuinely feel close to other people. I think it's the most understated aspect of well-being that we just don't consider enough of. In fact, if we were to take 148 research studies, which is over 300,000 participants, that's a lot of people, all these researchers together conclude that a lack of social connection was found to be a greater detriment to your health than obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure. If we start to think about COVID-19, already we had, before COVID, loneliness becoming an epidemic. When you start to think about COVID-19 and the impact that this can have on individuals at the moment, it's imperative that we're engaging as much as we can, but in meaningful connections. And I say that because we could have 100 people in the room, and it doesn't mean that you're socially connected. And so it's about meaningful connection. If we're integrating this into the workplace, it could be having social events that aren't work-related. If you're wanting to connect with a friend, it's about how do you have more meaningful connections where you're actively listening to another person and not multitasking. Or how are you sharing information with a friend that is more vulnerable? Or as a leader with your team, how are you showing that vulnerability? Because that's really what's going to be that binding, that glue of social connection. Something the Y have been doing is Y-solation. I love this. And so what young people, it's a program for young people, but anyone can really come together during Y-solation, and it's virtual to perhaps do a cooking class. We've had music, we've had art classes, whatever it may be, but it's allowing for that connection to still continue during this time. Mental well-being. Remember, mental well-being isn't just on its own. All these other elements have to be considered to improve mental well-being. What I really love about this definition is it's removing the stigma to mental health. It's not just about stress, anxiety, depression that we hear so much about, but rather mental well-being is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. I think we've come a long way in awareness when it comes to mental well-being. However, mental illness remains the most stigmatized group of disorders in the workplace. We all go to work day in and day out. Some of us were not going into work, some of us are at home working, and others have time off at the moment. But I think it's really interesting to think about the stigma related to mental health at the workplace and what we can do about it. Our emotional well-being. I could speak about emotions for a whole hour. I don't think that this gets enough attention either, and yet so intricately linked to mental well-being. Emotions are being aware of our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviours, and using them skillfully. I want you to think about the last time you ever attended a personal development session or a session at high school, uni, about your emotions and how you were able to increase your EQ, your emotional intelligence. You probably never have. And yet I think that this is such an untapped part of well-being that we need to be addressing, especially during this time of COVID-19. You would have heard of Daniel Goleman before, an absolute leader when it comes to emotional intelligence. And this is a quote saying that at best, your IQ contributes about 20% to the factors that determine life success, which leaves 80% to other forces, and EQ forms a large part of that. I think we've focused too much on intelligence and intellect that we have shifted from any sort of emotional intelligence. And I'm going to even take this a step further where it's not even about EQ, but emotional wisdom. And that really comes from your insights from yourself and being able to sit with them, being able to understand them and label them and notice that they're just transient energies that come and go, and how our thoughts affect our emotions and vice versa, and how that impacts our behavior and our perspective. A term that I love also is emotional agility. Everything's so rapid at the moment. Imagine how our emotions are. Noticing them when they arise and when they dissipate. Noticing what they're connected to and how it makes you feel and how you can communicate them. Because it's not about suppressing emotions in any way, but it's about being able to use them skillfully. And here we have spiritual well-being, which is living by your values, fulfilling your life purpose, or having a deep connection to who you are in this world. There's an acronym I love for this, and it's called VIBE. V stands for values. I stands for your intuition. B is your beliefs, and E is your ethics. So this is really what we're wanting to tap into here when it comes to our spiritual well-being. And I don't know if we're ever really given the time, either at the workplace or whether we've created this time for ourselves to be able to explore these. And I think values are your foundation. It's the bottom of the pyramid. If you haven't had time to explore your values, or if you haven't had a chance to write them down and write what they mean to you, that's probably something I would really highly recommend, because that's what's going to guide you. That's going to be your guiding light. That's when you're going to know whether something is misaligned with your values and which direction to take, so it can help us with our purpose. And I think purpose is probably one of the most important aspects in life and in our workplace. I wanted to share some research that Steve Cole has been doing over at UCLA. There's a lot of research on it, actually. And it was about occupational identification, which is how you identify with yourself in the workplace, in your role and what you do. People who have a high sense of purpose in the workplace, the research showed that they had greater life satisfaction, greater psychological well-being, a greater connection and sense of purpose. They also experienced less de-stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. What else is that they were able to transform their experience at the workplace. And this is really profound. If you think about how much time we spend at work, probably more than with our family and friends, that for us to really be able to have a higher life satisfaction, this needs to also happen in our workplace. And to be able to transform your experience through purpose is quite a new way of thinking. So what this means is that it's not just the employer or employee, it's about creating, it's a human approach. So us as humans have this responsibility to bring the purpose to work. So we're not here asking work to create that purpose for us or for anyone else. We need to actually bring our own purpose to work. And what the research shows is that that actually transforms our experience in the workplace and makes mundane tasks become more meaningful. And we can do this by changing from being a culture of a paycheck to a culture of purpose. And so what I wanted to share with you now is 4 universal elements of health and well-being. This is just to really break down 4 categories that you can do daily. The first one is move, the physical aspect. The second one is nourish. So you would have seen that there wasn't much about nutrition in the last one, and it's not even about nutrition, it's more about nourishing your body, your mind, your heart with what you consume. And sometimes nourish isn't just about the food, as you can see there, but sometimes nourish is about your newsfeed. It's about knowing what to listen to, what to have access to, who you have around you or who you're communicating with, and having these boundaries of understanding what's nourishing you and what isn't. It's also about connection. So understanding your purpose and connecting with yourself, connecting with other people. It's that sense of community. And then the 4th aspect is be. What's interesting about well-being and connection and nourishing and moving is that by having that introspection, by having that time out for yourself, the inner work actually helps with everything outside. And so this is a really important aspect. I already shared with you how meditation can help your telomeres at a cellular level, but then also then how the inward glance then reflects your outside world. Perhaps then you'll be more motivated to move your body and have this awareness as to what really nourishes you. And then you may be able to be more enhanced, to connect with others and yourself and have more meaningful relationships. Move, nourish, connect, and be. Daily practice. So here's a personal well-being assessment. We're going to take some time here together to go through these 4 aspects, and you can either just have the number in your head or you can write it down on your phone or on a piece of paper. But be really honest with yourself because you're not sharing this with anyone. I think this really quick exercise, it's very simplistic, but can bring some insight as to what areas you need to focus more on and perhaps where your strengths and weaknesses are. We tend to gravitate to the things that we do best because they're easier or perhaps it's already a habit for you. But maybe we need to shift our attention a little bit. Maybe we need to be challenged in a different way in the areas that we need to improve on to improve our personal well-being. So the first one is, where are you with your movement goals? At a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to write down or to have a number in your head as to 1, okay, my movement goals aren't going that great. 10, I really feel like that I'm at my optimum. So I'm going to give you a few seconds here to put down where you're at with your movement goals right now. Number 2, how are you eating lately? So this is about nourish. And this is still very intuitive. This is really about you and not what you think you should be doing, but perhaps what's right for your own body, mind, and heart. And then if we move on to the next one, How are you doing with connecting and finding strength in a sense of community? So it's about meaningful connections here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your personal well-being in relation to this? And the last one is, how well are you tuning into your inner peace and caring for your well-being? So this is the B aspect. And you may not be doing formal meditation, and that's okay, but perhaps you're taking time out to be in your garden, or perhaps you're taking time out to be really mindful as you walk. Whatever you feel is your B component, rate yourself out of 10. And so now here you have different numbers next to 1, 2, 3, 4. Perhaps noticing where your strengths are or where your weaknesses are. Or maybe you feel you're just average all across the board. And that's okay too. There's actually no judgment when it comes to this. We need to have an open heart and we need to have an open mind. And we also need to remove any judgment when we're doing anything like this, because that's not going to help us in any way. In fact, mindfulness and having this awareness is all about being non-judgmental and being kind. So when you look at this, use these insights as an opportunity to build that resilience on, seeing that beauty, finding connection and communing with something larger than yourselves and creating. And just gravitate to what resonates with you, with your own personal wellbeing assessment, and where do you want to take it? This is also something that you can do with your team. This is great. We're going to have time for meditation. What I wanted to share with you now is another tool that you can take away, and I actually call meditation a take-in tool, because I think we get so preoccupied with takeaways when it comes to presentations or events like this. And what I really want for you is the take-ins. So something that's specific for you, that inward glance, which meditation is going to allow us to do. And I'll be guiding you through that, but something that will come up specifically for you, a take-in that is your own wisdom. So it's less about what I'm talking about and more about your own empowered well-being. So meditation is an evidence-based tool, and initially people use it, that I've noticed anyway over the years, that they want something from it. They want to either reduce their stress, anxiety, depression. Doctors are prescribing it. Perhaps they're wanting to increase their energy. Whatever it may be, it becomes very transactional, using meditation as a tool. However, as you tend to practice it, especially on a regular basis, even if it's just a few minutes a day, as you tend to practice it, what people notice is that it's not so much a tool for these things. It's more about a way of living. It's a bit like exercise. You're not going to be able to do one session and then you're done. I mean, you need to embed it in your lifestyle, whether it's moving your body through yoga, whether you're going for a walk, whether you're doing high intensity, whether you're doing aqua, whatever it may be, it's a lifestyle. But whatever's going to get you to it first, even if it's transactional, allow it to become transformational over time. And here are just some of the benefits that science shows, and there's a whole list, to be honest, but I'll just go through these ones, and it can help with resilience, which we've gone through, mental well-being, decreasing stress, anxiety, depression, also improving mental clarity. It can increase your base level happiness, which is really important when it comes to resilience, and also promotes relaxation. It can improve emotional regulation, behavioral change. You can start to see that by changing your behavior, you're changing your life. And then productivity, and also your response to chronic pain. Here are some of the myths: that you can clear the mind, that you can stop the mind. You cannot. So even in meditation, your mind will be active, and that's part of the practice. Another thing is that it's for hippies. Well, it's definitely an evidence-based approach now. It's mainstream. It's not just for hippies, but I hear that one a lot. Also that you need a lot of time, that you need to commit to 40 minutes a day or an hour a day. No, you can do 3 minutes a day and you will feel the impact of meditation 3 minutes a day. In fact, that can get you into a deeper rest state than what 5 hours of sleep can do. That it's religious, it has a lineage to that, but the meditation and mindfulness that has come to the mainstream is all evidence-based. That you need to be in lotus posture. And basically what that is that cross-legged approach and your hands like this. And I teach yoga, and I have to say, I can't even be in that posture for a long period. And you don't have to be in that posture when you meditate. You can be seated, you can be lying down. Some people even do a walking meditation. Another myth is that there needs to be silence. I think some meditations that I've delivered and participated in have been in our busiest recreation facilities, and you don't need silence to meditate. The silence actually comes from within, no matter what's going on around you. And so what I wanted to share with you is 4 things that you will experience in meditation. Sounds. Sound is the number one thing that people report. I could be delivering a meditation in a workplace and it could be so quiet, but that clock's ticking, tick, tick, tick. And then people at the end of the meditation, well, some people will be like, oh, that clock was driving me crazy. So you become more heightened. Your senses, actually, all your senses become more heightened. So you will experience sounds, and all of these are considered distractions in meditation, but we embrace the distractions. Another thing that will come in will be thoughts. I mean, we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We're not here to stop the thoughts. We're not here to stop the sounds. We're just here to bring awareness, an open awareness to whatever we're experiencing without controlling it, and then just coming back to the breath. So we'll experience body sensations. Perhaps you'll notice that if you've been carrying tension throughout the day, but you're so distracted and busy and on the go, you don't notice it until there's stillness. So maybe in meditation, you may notice pain. You may notice that your body relaxes over time, or that the temperature of your body is warmer or cooler in certain areas. And then the 4th thing is emotions. While they're very subtle, we may notice emotions. And this is how it can help with emotional well-being, is because we're allowing ourselves to rest in them. So all these things, sounds, thoughts, body sensations and emotions, can come in and out of your meditation experience through stillness. And you can't ever have the same meditation experience. We're not here striving for a good meditation. There's no good or bad. We're just allowing ourselves to rest inside of ourselves. And this can help us at a cellular level. This improves research shows, improves our well-being. And so when you do notice these things coming up in a meditation for you, we acknowledge them. So you may notice that there's sounds, but you come back to your breath. You may notice that there's thoughts, you come back to your breath. And so it's this to-ing and fro-ing, and that's just part of the meditation. But sometimes the longer you're in it, the less you notice these things. As soon as you become aware of it, the awareness comes up, but you just come back to the breath. And so I've got here on the bottom left, Insight Timer. It's my favorite app to use, because it's free, so it reduces any barriers, but it has this really nice bell sound at the end so that it will tell you when your meditation's up, and you can actually put in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever you want to do. You can even do guided meditations, but it allows the bell to go, and you don't have to turn it off like you would if it was your alarm on your phone. And it just allows you to stay in it if you want to. So it gives you that flexibility. So Insight Timer. Before we go into any questions on insights, I've just got some referrals there that I love to go to, Beyond Blue, Headspace and Black Dog Institute when it comes to mental well-being. But what I did want to do, I wanted to guide you through a 3-minute meditation. So I'm just going to get you to close your eyes. You can be seated, feet flat on the ground, relax the shoulders. And just bring awareness to your breath. And by doing that, you're just noticing the rise and fall of your belly as you breathe. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. Maybe noticing the breath in between your nostrils. Not having to manipulate the breath in any way, because your body already knows how to breathe. We're just observing. This breath is your home base that you can come to, so whenever there's distractions, just come back to this awareness here. You may notice sounds or thoughts, and you just acknowledge these and come back to your breath. Maybe even taking this time for reflection, allowing thoughts and feelings to come up when it comes to your personal well-being, to move, connect, nourish, and be. What areas you're wanting to focus on, what insights you had. Your own personal wisdom right here. Allowing these insights but letting go of any judgment. Just resting here for a few more moments. Giving yourself thanks for attending this session today and for taking time out to meditate collectively. Sending kindness to yourself and to everyone in this webinar, and then extending it. And then whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. Thank you, everyone. Let me take a look at this chat.
Didn't want to jump in there, Fiona, because I was enjoying such a moment of peace, and I'm sure others as well. It's such a gift to be able to share mindfulness and the benefits of it, and to have someone sort of guide you through that as well. I think it's a really special thing. And thank you. I always enjoy the sort of couple of minutes of peace and happiness that sort of flow from them. Just for anyone listening, I got an 11 out of 40 on the overall health assessment, so I sort of panicked a bit there. We've got a couple of questions that have come through. So Mevin has asked, we live in an age where, there's greater awareness, safety nets, and mechanisms for support. But, that sort of goes hand in hand with the fact that, we have the sort of higher statistics of, mental health and things like that. And it could be partly driven by awareness. But Mevin's question was, do we have, what are opportunities that people can use to improve their individual resilience from a practical perspective?
Yeah, and I think that we have come a long way in terms of awareness, and this is probably something we're tracking more of, and people are willing to speak more about it, which is why I think that there's probably the leading cause of disability. And I think what we can do about this is continue to normalise about mental well-being, bring it to awareness, talk about it. And it's not just about Are You OK days, but it's every day. And that's really important. And I think the mechanism is going to be individual. I mean, if there was a framework or a blanket approach to say, here's the manual, this is what's going to improve your mental well-being for you and for everyone, then that's what we'll be using. But because there isn't, and because it's such an individual journey, and I love that you've brought this up because it is an individual journey, what may have worked for one person may not for someone else. So over time, things will also change, and you'll need different tools, and you'll need meet different challenges. And so this is why I really love mindfulness and meditation, because it allows you to have this awareness to adapt and change and to have this insight into what's going to serve you best. And I think that's where that personal resilience comes in, is to be able to have the tool of mindfulness and meditation to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of my staff messaged me just as I said my last comment. 11 out of 40. That doesn't surprise me. So obviously it
no judgment.
It flows out as a people leader as well. That your whatever your level of wellness is obviously, it obviously transfers on. And so there's a lesson in there for leadership as well about your reach exceeds your grasp as well. So you need to be you need to be even more careful, I think, in cultivating that. Julia from Marunda's asked, does the more you connect with others make you happier?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I saw that there. My take on that is that it's not about how many people you're connecting with. It's probably two parts to this. You could have a lot of people around that you're connecting with and still not feel that eudaimonic happiness, so that deeper sense of belonging. And I think that you could be connecting with a few people, but yet have a deeper sense of purpose. But no matter who you're connecting with, when it comes to your outside world, you're not going to be able to have that real fulfillment unless you're connecting with yourself. So, and I think that's really important here, is that we tend to look outside of ourselves for this eudaimonic happiness, when really we need to connect within ourselves, and that's actually going to enhance our relationships with other people and have that meaningful connection.
It's so key. I realized is my score was so low, and I'm sorry to talk about myself, everyone. Feel free
I think we need a
to
session on
questions.
This.
We've only had a couple. But I like to indulge myself, which is great, in talking to presenters on the series. I've learned so much. It's been the professional development series for RJ, which has been fantastic. 4 times a week I get professionally developed. I play a lot of team sports, and normally I would probably play 4 games a week, and then a training session as well. And then I might also go in. I play ice hockey, so I might go to the ice rink. They have at 6 a.m. every day. It's just called a stick and puck. You get to skate around on the ice with a stick and a puck, and just sort of enjoy the feeling of sliding on ice. And that tends to be kind of not so much a spiritual moment, but it's definitely putting back in terms of a joyful feeling. And with all that being shut down at the moment, my community's stepped away. And the physical benefits as well as the well-being benefits. So it's really interesting just how much, and I assume that I'm just one of millions of people in that kind of boat where, their sporting activities, their recreation activities are group-based, and you were talking a lot about that in the start of the presentation. Do you think that, particularly over this period that we're still in a bit of lockdown, do you think mindfulness, can assist with that in terms of an individual journey and connecting with something on an individual basis?
Most definitely. And I sort of look at this isolation period as a silent retreat. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with silent retreats before, but as part of my studies at UCLA, as continual education, I actually have to attend one silent retreat a year. And what that is it could be 5, 10, 20 days, depending on how extreme you want to go. And you could be on a silent retreat with 40, 50 other people, hundreds, who knows. But you actually don't talk to anyone during that time. You don't talk to anyone, you don't have any technology, and you don't have any distractions. So you are with yourself that whole time. And so I sort of feel, obviously, that, from a science perspective, this can really help you. And so I think that this time during COVID-19, this stillness, this silence, even though there's a lot of havoc outside, but within and this time for reflection really gives us that opportunity to come through on the other side of COVID-19, how we really want to turn up in this world.
Yeah. How often like when you say you go once a year, how long do you go for? You say it depends how extreme you want to be. How extreme are you?
I've been for 10 days. And what's interesting, I'm actually more of an introvert than I'm an extrovert. And I love going into silence. I actually am more challenged coming out of it, which is an interesting insight.
That is interesting. I wouldn't have picked that. So it's like the perfect introvert activity because you're around other people, but you don't have to talk. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, your facial muscles, they get a break.
It's like archery clubs and chess clubs and things like that. Book clubs, things like that. Introvert havens. That's really interesting. Do you have any other sort of slides that you want to show anyone, or can I whack up on the screen here what's coming next? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, everyone, you've got a few more minutes to ask Fee some questions. I think you should. One, shut me up by asking your own questions, and two, avail yourself of the expertise here. Just to let you know what's coming up next week while we sort of wait for anything to come through, we've got Hannah Batista from the Y as well, talking about customer-focused innovation. So we used to talk about the customer journey through, particularly big box leisure centers and our products, and now, how do we sort of innovate in a way that's customer focused? And I know a lot of you would be familiar with customer empathy mapping and that type of thing. The following Friday, we have member segmentation. So how to engage with different people and how you might do that. We've got Rachel from Glen Ira Leisure Centre, so it's a big box leisure centre. So how you can, if you're operating a big box, how you can engage with different people and segment. I've got Richard Tutunji from Com Marketing, promoting you and your brand on LinkedIn for mass reach. So if you're looking at, if you're a business owner or you are a professional and you're trying to grow your network, grow your brand, get more customers or get that next job, I'm sure there'll be some interesting insights there as well. So Fee, we've got Steve Stone, I'm floating in the comments. We've got Mevin saying it's a very practical perspective. Thank you for answering his question. Has anyone else got any other questions? It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, maybe. Oh, we've got one. So Steve Stone, apart from the health org links supplied, Fiona, do you have any other recommendations of tools or resources that could be recommended for sharing with our workspace teams?
Yeah, so with Filex, actually did speak about workplace wellness in particular. It would really depend on what you're wanting to address. So, I mean, are you wanting to do a session? We're seeing a lot of trending sessions on financial health, on mindfulness, on resilience, on emotional intelligence. So it would depend on what area you're wanting for me to be able to direct you in that way about workplace wellness. I would be looking at the personal element rather than professional development personally, because I just think that we focus so much on the professional that we're not actually honouring the person coming to work. So it's that values, it's the beliefs, aligning the purpose of individual purpose to the organisational purpose. I think that would be really beneficial rather than looking at so much professional development and integrating that personal element.
Yeah, that's a key point. I've like even reflecting on my own career as well. There's probably a 2-year period where every PD session was just on EQ in some capacity. Whether it was leading through change, whether it was developing, those 4 quadrants of EQ. Awareness of self, awareness of others, control of self, and control of others. Not so much controlling people or yourself, but being able to guide their emotional experience or your emotional experience. You're talking about having emotions and it being deliberate about it or doing it with purpose. You cannot, those really effective leaders, you can see them holding the room or guiding the emotional space, whether it's a board meeting where there's important decisions to be made, or whether it's a one-on-one conversation with a direct, that you can sort of be able to influence and bring calm and purpose and clarity to the emotional state as well. I think it's so key.
It allows you to use them skillfully and also be able to connect with other people at a different level. And that's what we need. We need to be humans.
Yeah, 100%. Lots of thank yous coming through. We've got thank you. That was wonderful. Thanks for your time. Lots of very happy people, myself included. Thank you so much, Fiona, on behalf of Fitness Australia and Lifesaving Victoria, again for sharing with us and some insights into this area that you are very passionate and knowledgeable about. I'll send you through details of the recording as soon as possible as well. But we just want to thank you again for coming on the webinar series. And yeah, I can't wait for the next one.
I really appreciate everyone's presence. It really means a lot. So thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks so much, Fiona. So if anyone has any feedback, questions, if you need to get in touch with Fee, you can send us an email and I can forward it on. Or I'm sure you can look up Fiona on LinkedIn or something along those lines. But our email is assessments@lsv.com.au, and if anything comes through, I'll be happy to pass it on. Once again, we'll see you guys next Tuesday on the series, and hope everyone has a wonderful weekend now that we can sort of see friends and family a little bit more. Make sure you connect with people. If you can, get outside and play some group sports and get moving with people. You've just heard about all the benefits, so make sure you do it. I know I definitely will be. And thanks, everyone. I'll just end the session here in about a minute. Thank you.